How important is it, the situation that the quarterback is in?
Quarterback perspective and a coordinator's perspective, that's the most important thing on offense is how do they see the game?
Who surprised you? Is there anything that's standing out for you?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, Ricky, is the Indianapolis Colts. That question will be answered in about 3 weeks when they play the Kansas City Chiefs.
My guest today, quarterback, the Washington Redskins to victory in Super Bowl 17. During his all-pro career, he went on to become one of the most respected broadcasters in the game as well. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the program 1983 NFL MVP, the great Joe Theismann joins the show. Joe, how are you?
I'm great, Ricky. It's always good to catch up with you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you back on, and I can't think of anybody better to talk to as we approach the halfway mark of this NFL season than yourself. So I'm going to have you drop some truth bombs on us today about various issues going on with these teams this year. I want to start with Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. 6-2, of course, Vrabel, former coach of the year, let go by the Tennessee Titans for reasons that I'm not sure that I understand clearly even now. What do you think of the first year so far of the Mike Vrabel regime in New England?
Well, I think what Mike has basically done is he did it in Tennessee initially, was he's brought some toughness to his football team. I mean, you watch the New England Patriots play defensively, offensively, they're going to be a tough football team. And Drake is in his second year now, so he understands a lot more about what he wants to do and what they require of him. And the one thing that nobody really talks about, and I'm surprised, is Josh McDaniels' presence on that staff, being the coordinator. It sort of gets swept under the rug. But I'll tell you something, from a quarterback perspective and a coordinator's perspective, that's the most important thing on offense is how do they see the game? How does the quarterback see the game through the coordinator's eyes? And so I think offensively, they're really sound and solid. I think Stefan's given them a boost. And then Mike has brought a tremendous amount of toughness to it. I played in the American Century Championship this past year with Mike Vrabel. We played on Sunday together. Really got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. You know what happens on a golf course? You're out there for 4 hours. You really get to know people. And boy, he's the guy I say, look, if I was coming back, that's who I want to play for.
Well, Joe, obviously it's been a great success the first half of this season, and with Vrabel's pedigree, I have to believe that good things are coming in New England beyond what we've seen already. But I'm interested in the comments that you made about Drake May. Last year, of course, it was Jaden Daniels playing your old position in Washington that captivated everyone, and Caleb Williams here in Chicago was compared to him unfavorably, throughout the season. And we heard did the Bears blow it again? They should have taken the guy who went number 2. Now this year, I'm hearing a lot of people saying, no, actually Drake May might be the guy from this quarterback class. And so it seems like opinions on young quarterbacks were either sky high and elevating them to standards that probably nobody could reach, or we're saying, oh my gosh, this kid is terrible, and they're getting written off. When you look at the league this year and you see what Daniel Jones is doing in Indianapolis, what Baker Mayfield is doing in Tampa Bay, the fact that Sam Darnold has gone to Seattle and he's solidified that breakout year that he had last year in Minnesota. Heck, even Mac Jones filling in for Brock Purdy in San Francisco has done some pretty fine work. How important is it, the situation that the quarterback is in? There's a photo that circulates around of Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield when they were both with the Panthers, which of course, the Panthers managed to let that get away from them. How much of it is not just the quarterback, but the quarterback being in the right environment to show the skills that he has?
Ricky, it's everything. It's coaching. It's an interesting dynamic. You need to have people in the right system. For example, Baker's in the right system in Tampa. Mac's in a great situation with Kyle. You look at the offenses that these guys play in. Daniel Jones situation. I want to take just a minute with this. We've constantly tried to underplay the value of the running game in professional football. We haven't paid the running backs well. Now they're finally getting a little more money. but their value speaks volumes. When Saquon was in New York with Daniel managed to get a really new contract because he played really well. The Giants let Saquon walk. Daniel had to sort of master the ship by himself that next year. Didn't play well. Winds up getting shipped off. Goes someplace. I think he was with Kevin up in Minnesota. Now all of a sudden he spends some time with a really quality, I call him a quarterback guru, learns more about the game, learns more about the system. Then he winds up in the perfect scenario in Indianapolis where he has Jonathan Taylor, another great running back. And, the fact that Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia had the year he had last year, I don't think is coincidental. The fact that Saquon was there. So, and then Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. So as you look around, all these are tied and connected. And so often we overlook the fact that the guys to be in the right system with the right people around them, and you need to be beat up for a little while. I mean, instead of being able to sit, now guys go get playing time and they get beat up there and then they go someplace else. It's a little different scenario, but you're still taking time to learn the game.
Joe, what was that 1980 season like for you when John Riggins stepped away from the game? Yeah, it was
horrible.
Did it just change the entire complexion of the offense, not having John there?
Oh, sure. I mean, John was our bell cow. And, saw what happened before and saw what happened after. I love to tell a story about John and Coach Gibbs. Now, I don't know whether it's truth. I don't know whether it's fiction. Knowing the parties, it could possibly be true. Joe flew out when John was retired. John left in 80. He became the head coach of our football team, the Skins, in 1981. So he flies out to Centralia, Kansas to meet with John. Joe's sitting at the kitchen table in the morning. John comes walking in, walks to the refrigerator, grabs himself something to drink, sits down across from Coach Gibbs. He says, let's get something straight. You need me a heck of a lot more than I need you. Okay, fine. So Joe goes back to Washington. He says, the guy's nuts. He's crazy. He's just, this holy mackerel. This is unbelievable. I just can't have him on my football team. And then Joe put the tape on of John. And he said, you know something? I do need him a heck of a lot more than he needs me. But it was that kind of relationship that was established at that time. John was, I'm fortunate enough to have been a quarterback of a Super Bowl championship team, partly because of John Riggins. Certainly a great offensive line, great coaching staff, but John was really the straw that stirred our drink. He was exceptional, fast, strong, big, tough. John used to sit in the meeting rooms with the offensive line. He wasn't in any of our passing installation meetings. He was just in there with the offensive lineman. And, he's a Hall of Famer. He was a Super Bowl MVP, and I'm thankful forever to him.
Well, you guys were certainly a formidable combination for a long time. Joe, in Tennessee, Brian Callahan obviously fired during the season. Mike McCoy's the interim guy now. Of course, Callahan was Mike Vrabel's successor. And now Mike McDaniel, we're hearing so much, coaches on the hot seat, those conversations that take place. Miami obviously is floundering this year. How do you know when it's time to part ways with the coach? I've always felt that teams sometimes maybe were a little too itchy on the trigger finger with firing guys. But, you look at Pittsburgh, for instance, right? I think one of the most amazing things, 3 head coaches since 1969, that sort of stability is pretty much unheard of in the modern game. When you look at, say, Mike McDaniel or any situation where a team is not living up to expectations, maybe there's, hints of little trouble in the locker room or whatever. How do you know when it's time, and is making a coaching change mid-year something that you think is more often worth it or possibly a mistake?
I think so. I think it depends on the length of time that a coach has been there. Of course, we know Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh's been there for 17 years, never had a losing season. That speaks volumes for who he is and the type of football coach he is. I think Miami has been struggling. They gave $150 million guaranteed, but I don't know, with his arm strength and with the concussion issues that he possibly have, was that the right decision? So that, again, you get your general manager fired because of the economic decision that was made. I think Mike does an excellent job trying to put Tua in situations where he can look at what his capabilities are and provide routes that he can get the ball out and to people. We constantly saw Tyreek Hill run down the field and the ball was never in front of him. He was always coming back for it. And so that's one of those struggles that you deal with. Mike also happens to be, and this is very important, Ricky, he happens to be the play caller. So if your head coach is the play caller and you want to make a change, that means you have to bring an entirely new play caller in, which doesn't serve the team very well. When to make the decision on to cut and chase, you have to look, is the team playing their hardest? What are you looking at as individuals? What are the leaders on that football team going to do? All these things are so important when you analyze, is the person in charge, the head coach, is he doing the job that he needs to, or do we need to find some other people around the position as far as assistants go, as far as players go? It's not just a well, get rid of them now or well, keep them now situation. There's a lot that has to go into it, but you have to evaluate what the team looks like. Are they responding to the coach? I think that's very important. I think one of the problems in Tennessee is you have a rookie quarterback who is extremely undisciplined, has a very strong arm. And, over these weeks, have we seen him get any better? That's sort of the question you have to ask. And if not, then you have to make a decision. Am I going to let this thing run the course, or do we try and get something and figure something out now?
Joe, Baltimore Ravens obviously look very good against Miami on Thursday night. Started 1-5. Obviously, Lamar being injured has been a real part of this picture. But sure, they're now 3-5. I saw a statistic when they were 1-5 that said only 1.8% of teams, just under 2%, have made the playoffs after starting 1-5 since 1990. The Ravens now have a healthy Lamar Jackson. They stand at 3-5 right now. As you look ahead at the second half of this season, is there still an opportunity here, in your opinion, that the Ravens could right the ship and end up being a playoff factor?
No question. Matter of fact, I think they can win the division. Pittsburgh is struggling now stopping people. They're giving up a ton of points. Cincinnati, how long will Joe Flacco be able to hold the course? And now all of a sudden he's got a shoulder problem. So now you're down another quarterback. Cleveland, you've got a rookie in there with a rookie waiting. I mean, so you look in this division, who's a threat to Baltimore in this division as they get their people healthy, as Lamar comes back and becomes Lamar. Derek and Lamar together are an unbelievable combination. One without the other doesn't necessarily work, and we've seen that. But I'll tell you something, now that they're healthy there, their defense is playing well. They feed off of one another well. I would say I would pick really the Ravens to win the division, to be perfectly honest with you.
Joe, as we look at it here midseason, who surprised you? Is there anything that's standing out for you that you're looking at this year and you're thinking, man, I didn't necessarily expect that to happen, either for good or for bad? What has sort of not gone according to the narrative that we might have expected, in your opinion?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, Ricky, is the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, how was he going to play? What were they going to look like? We knew they had a great running back. Their defense was very good. Okay, now how would he fit in and transition in? And what kind of football team would they be? That's another football team. I talked about Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. That's the other one I'm looking at in a positive way. Say, what have you been able to do? The disappointment is basically the Raiders. Expected Geno to play better there, played like he did in Seattle. Of course, Pete brought him in, and they struggle. They struggle with a lot of different aspects of the game. So those are, those three teams, two on a very upswing, and one, you scratch your head and say, when are they going to turn it around? When's it going to get right?
This Kansas City Chiefs team, Joe, not great out of the gate, but they're starting to look really good lately.
They look like the Kansas City Chiefs in December.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is there one more run here for the
I think so.
The old machine?
I certainly
when you
think
look
so.
at it, I was going to say, if you look at this AFC, I mean, the Bills are tough. The Patriots, the Colts, as you're saying, the only 7-win team in the league, and then obviously still the Chiefs. When you look at that AFC playoff picture, I mean, is it way too much of an ask to think that the Indianapolis Colts might have a chance to come out of the American Football Conference this year?
That question will be answered in about 3 weeks when they play the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it'll be answered. We'll have a better idea. Let's put it that way. But I think the Buffalo Bills is a football team that, you could say is a little bit disappointing. I mean, they've let games get away. I expected them to be more dominant than they have been, to be honest with you. And the Kansas City Chiefs, Ricky, we've seen this year after year after. They start this way every year. They just don't start fast. They don't go out and blow people out or, play solid football. And the other thing is health is an understated factor in professional football. The Commanders, they were without 3 wide receivers and their quarterback got hurt. Now they got 2 of their wide receiver back and their quarterback still hurt. You look at the San Francisco 49ers, the job Kyle and John have done out there is incredible. They're constantly hurt. But, people have to be healthy to be able to have you do the job that you need to do. That is what has happened to the Kansas City Chiefs. They've got speed outside. They've got playmakers outside, which means you can't jump Kelsey all the time. They've got a good enough running game to keep you honest, which is really all you want. And they've got the best quarterback, the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, there's always going to be an argument between Lamar and Patrick, because they're both very, very talented, extremely incredible, and very improvisational in the way they play the game. But Patrick plays at a very high level. Even a couple of years ago, when it looked like Patrick wasn't having really a good year, they dropped a ton of footballs on him. So to me, Kansas City is still the team you have to look at. Now, in the NFC, who could it be? Is Philadelphia starting to hit their stride? We don't know. Could the Commanders bounce back? Cowboys are scoring a lot of points, but they can't stop anybody. And the Giants continue to find ways to lose football games as opposed to win them. And just in that division, you start to look at what's going on. So, this is what's great about our game. It's almost on a week-to-week basis, Ricky. It's like, okay, who's going to be the flavor of the week? And who's going to be the one that,
so
is
true.
The stinker of the week, I guess you could say.
So true. My NFL picks this year reflect that very clearly, Joe. At least for me, it's a puzzle. Probably more for me than for you. Joe, Brian Kelly out at LSU, massive buyout there, $53 million that LSU is on the hook for. Of course, the former head coach at Notre Dame there, Brian Kelly. Any thoughts on that? And as well, Bill Belichick and everything that has gone with that first season for him in Chapel Hill so far?
Well, I think in Bill's case, I think he had a bunch of guys leave. I mean, college football, professional football, which we used to call college football, is a very unique situation. It's a very muddled world. It's a very unorganized world. There's so much going on in that world that disrupts it. There's no continuity. How do you, I was very surprised that Bill took a coaching job at the college level, especially after Nick Saban, his dear friend of his, left for basically the reasons why we see you can't keep players. How do you build a culture when every year you're changing players? And Bill had a lot of guys exit and move on. And I think it's a challenge. He's certainly obviously a tremendous football coach. And, where do you go find the players? You get a guy in the portal, and how much can you teach him? Here's the other thing. In college football, Ricky, you're only allowed to coach your players 20 hours a week. If you're a coach, that's all you're supposed to be with your players. Notice I said supposed to be. I don't know if people do it more, but it's a challenge to be able to teach anybody anything over that period of time. And as far as Coach Kelly down at LSU, it was, I think it was a tough ask going down in the first place. And the SEC, you don't survive very long if you don't win football games. And he's had certainly an issue winning football games there. Here's the thing that I don't think we're going to see going forward. I would be very surprised. And obviously, college football now has general managers in their college programs. They're not athletic directors. They're both now. You have general managers, athletic directors. General managers manage the money. I would be shocked if you see 10-year deals going forward. I would be shocked. To me, if you couldn't figure out what a coach was doing in 5 years, then, you haven't done a very good evaluation process. And now we see the buyouts for Penn State, for Texas A&M, for Florida, for LSU. These are all huge buyouts. And sure, the alumni have money, but I don't think they want to spend it on somebody that's not going to be doing the job for them at the university that they love. So one thing I think that may come out of the whole situation will be the quote unquote 10-year contract that the coaches will want. There's some really good coaches out there that you don't have to pay, $8, $9, $10 million to. You look at the results and see how they've done. And of course, in Brian's case, like I said, the SEC is a very demanding conference, and it didn't live up to the standards that they wanted. So, Coach Kelly was out.
Joe, want to ask you one question here about the new stadium. How excited are you about what's going on with the Washington franchise? A new RFK, a new era that is approaching for Washington football. I know you've been involved in that. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm so excited about the new stadium. Its location. I didn't realize there was as much land as there is down at Old RFK. Now, I had a chance to do Peyton Place with Peyton. We did a show down there. Larry Brown, Jeff Bostic, Mark Mosley, Darryl Green. We had a chance to be able to really walk around in the old places. They started to tear it down, and tremendous memories there for me. But I think everything will be new and fresh, and I think they're projecting somewhere around 30 to have it ready, because it takes 4 or 5 years to build the stadiums. But it's in a great location. It's going to be great for Anacostia, that whole area down there from a development standpoint. It's a great shot in the arm for Washington, D.C., and I think it'll be a great shot in the arm for the Commanders.
Well, Joe, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I know you've got the book, How to Be a Champion Every Day, which is a topic that you know a little something about. Let our audience know what you have going on and how they can keep up with Joe Theismann these days.
Well, first of all, I'm on Twitter at Theismann7. I love engaging with fans. The book I wrote basically is the relationship between the world of sports, the world of business, and our own lives. People like Colin Powell have written parts for me, and Coach Gibbs has mentioned in it quite a bit. The relationships that I've had in the past and the game I love very much. But it really, I think there's a great synergy between the world of business and what we do in athletics, and of course in our own personal lives. Just as an example, Ricky, one of the things I stress: in football, we write down goals. In business, we write down goals. But there's a huge percentage in the 90s that people don't take the time to write down the things that they want in their life. Write them down. That way you have a reference point to be able to move forward in your life. And it's something it was a labor of love. I certainly enjoyed doing it. It's available on Amazon, and you can order it. It's not a long read. It's something I wanted to make concise, and I wanted to cover the points that I do. And it's the basis of so many of the presentations that I do around the country, and get a chance to talk to people and meet great groups of people.
Well, I certainly would encourage my audience to check that out. And Joe, on the way out, incidentally, of course, former Toronto Argonauts,
yes.
Great. Do you have a rooting interest in this World Series? Do you pull for Toronto as an old Toronto athlete?
Part of me does. I've been to that stadium. And I saw the Braves play up there in Toronto when Dion was on the team. But just Ohtani to me is more than generational. He is something we've never seen in this game. I mean, we've seen so many things in our lifetime, Ricky. Tom Brady, 7 world championships. Ohtani, what he's able to do on a field. Some of the women that are incredible, they're putting up points in the WNBA, and you look at the way they play the game of golf. I mean, we're seeing so many different things in the world of athletics that we've never seen before. Part of me would like to see Toronto win, but I have to be perfectly honest with you. Going in, I'm a Dodger fan.
All right, fair enough. And look, I couldn't agree with you more. Ohtani, I think the closest thing that I can equate it to in recent memory is Tiger winning the U.S. Open by 15 strokes. Because
You're
what
right.
Ohtani's doing, it's so – yeah, if you had said to us 10, 20, 30 years ago that this was possible, we would have just said, hey, what are you drinking? Because it just wouldn't have been even something that would have been possible. So, Joe, hey, look, I don't want to monopolize all your time. Thank you so much. It's always an honor to have you on the program, and look forward to talking to you again.
Enjoyed it tremendously, Ricky. Take care.